What's going on? It's Trending Story. If it's your first time here and you want to find out new facts that will definitely make you smarter and more well informed, make sure to subscribe and activate the notifications bell so you don't miss anything.
Today, I and all my family members went to my grandfather's house to celebrate his birthday with him. And on this day, my grandfather will be 80 years old. And this time, he will celebrate his birthday with his children and grandchildren, and even the children of his grandchildren. So my grandfather was very happy, telling us some stories that happened with him in the past. I wanted to visit my grandfather earlier because I had many questions about what happened in the past and how his father died. That is, my great-grandfather, whose death story remains mysterious to this day. And only my grandfather knows its details, but he also refuses to talk about it. I didn't know anything about my great-grandfather except that his name was Nikita. It was a nice party for my grandfather, and we brought him a big cake and many gifts. Then we sang and danced, and when the wonderful party was over, my grandfather asked us to sit around the table because he had a story he wanted to tell us, where he told us it was a suitable opportunity because everyone is present, and he asked us to keep telling it all the time for our children and grandchildren. When we sat around the table, my grandfather protected the cup of tea in his hand and started telling us about his father. My grandfather said, "My father Nikita was a good and courageous person. We feared nothing as he participated in the Russian Patriotic War. And when the war ended, he returned to live in the village. Many men were martyred in the war, and Nikita was among the few young men to survive death. When Nikita arrived in the village, all the young women in the village wanted to marry him because he is strong and a handsome young man, but he preferred to marry my mother even though she is 5 years older than him. My father became involved in raising livestock and going to the forest to hunt there because the jobs were few, and for that reason all people depended for their income on farming and raising livestock. We were waiting impatiently when my father came back in the evening, carrying what he had caught in his hand, as he hunted fat birds, rabbits, and even deer at times. One day my father went with two of his hunter's friends. While they were wandering among the trees in search of prey, they found a group of small puppies sleeping in the den. Then the hunters approached them and started watching. The hunters took out their guns and tried to shoot the little wolves, but Nikita stood in their face and prevented them from doing so, telling them that he would not allow the killing of the little wolves. And although the hunters insisted on doing that, and they told my father that wolves sometimes attack and eat the livestock in the village, and they attacked children several times and harmed them, but my grandfather did not hear their words and insisted on protecting the little wolves. Meanwhile, a group of wolves approached that den, but the hunters shot them and hit one of them. Although Nikita tried to prevent them from doing so, while the other wolves fled and the hunters followed. Nikita kept holding the little wolf in his hand, approached the injured wolf, then took out the bottle that had hit him in the leg and removed his undershirt and bandaged the wound. That helped the wolf get up from his place and asked him to leave before the hunters returned. The men returned to the village after killing a number of wolves, while Nikita kept with the little animals thinking of a suitable solution for them. The man realized that leaving the small animals in this state would be dangerous for them and they might die from starvation, because the hunters had driven out all the wolves that were in that forest, including the parents of the puppies. This is not good for them. My father decided to take these puppies home with him to take care of them, and he made sure that none of the villagers discovered what he had done, as he waited for darkness to fall and returned to the house carrying 3 beautiful pups in his hands, and gave her the milk that he milked from the cow and left it in the house running. We considered those little pups like dolls, as we were so excited when Dad brought them, and we kept playing with them until late at night. My father instructed us not to abuse these little wolves and be kind to them, and he also warned us not to show them in front of the rest of the villagers, because this would put them in danger, as all the villagers hate wolves and want to get rid of them whenever they find them. Days passed, and my father kept taking care of these wolves, and I and my brothers used to help him with that, especially during the period when he was absent from the house, where we offered her food, cleaned her sleeping place of waste, and we used to play with them in the hallway of the house and enjoy spending our time with them. One day we heard the villagers screaming, and then everyone entered their homes. Meanwhile, a group of wolves appeared and wandered between the houses for an hour. The villagers tried to shoot her, but they were well aware that the wolves would then become more aggressive, and they would remain calm and wait for the animals to leave. When my father comes home in the evening, we tell him what happened, and then he realizes those wolves want to have pups. We sat playing with the little wolves after we had dinner, while my father went out to the balcony of the house. There he saw 2 wolves standing not far from our house and howling at the top of their voices. My father wanted to approach them to know what they wanted, but he was afraid that she would attack and harm him. On the next day, the same scene was repeated, but this time a huge number of wolves surrounded the village and surrounded it from everywhere, which made all residents hide in their homes and kept waiting for what exactly those wolves wanted. Meanwhile, my father carried the 3 puppies in his arms and went out into a small yard in the village, and there the ferocious wolves approached him as they grimaced their tusks and surrounded him. Nikita was alone, and he had only a rifle in his hand, which made us worried about him, as my older brother picked up the gun and kept preparing to attack in case wolves attacked our father. Nikita put the puppies on the ground and asked her to go to her mother, and in the meantime the wolves approached him and began preparing to attack him, but one of them was limping, approached the wolves and stood in their way and prevented her from approaching him. Nikita has confirmed this wolf is the same who treated him when he found him wounded by a bullet in his foot, and he returned the favor in time by defending him and preventing those wolves from approaching him. The running puppies immediately went into her mother's bosom, who was happy to see them again, as she kept licking and reassuring on them. Then she left, and her puppies followed her, and the other wolves followed her. Then my father sighed and sat on the ground and watched as the wolves left. The hunters discovered that my father did a good job when he prevented them from killing wolf pups, and he brought them to the house and took care of them. Because if they had killed those puppies, they would have to face them when they came to retrieve their young, and then the task will not be easy because the number of wolves was too large. It is not possible that the people of the village will be able to overcome them. What Nikita did was a heroic and humane act at the same time, and he defended the animals and protected them from death. And in return, he saved all the inhabitants of the village from death, because the wolves were afraid and wanted to retrieve the little ones. And it is fortunate that Nikita returned to them what they were asking for, and he managed to calm the raging wolves.
Thanks for watching. Please like and share the video in social networks. We'll be right back to you as fast as we can.